Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast. My name's Randy Smith, and I will be your host today. And I'm excited to have Eric Burns with us today. Eric is the founder of Flowers Capital. Eric and I have some similar interest in what we do day to day and helping educate the new and newer passive investor. And just really excited to have you on the show, Eric. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Randy, super excited to be on. And before we get started, I love the title of your show because crushing it is a gentle art. It's the soft skills and kind of getting your mind wrapped around just kind of what, financial freedom could look like and, all those nuances that come with it. So I love it. Very insightful. Yeah. So I'm going to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's I can't take credit for it. It is one of the co-hosts came up with the title, but I loved it just as much when we first got started. So, well, let's jump right in, Eric, if we can. Tell me, if you can, how do you see today's market conditions impacting opportunities for the passive investor?
Absolutely. Coming off a very tumultuous run, you are probably hearing a lot about capital calls and things like that. I am actually very kind of bullish moving forward with certain operators. Certain operators are going to do very well in the next the next season of real estate investing. They've got really great systems in place and they are established in really fundamentally sound markets. So really it's operator dependent moving forward for me, but I'm excited and I'm actually looking at a deal that will probably go live soon that is really exciting. This really neat operator is really great operator. They've been laying low waiting for the right deal and they got one. And for me, that is kind of the, that attention getter. Like, okay, yeah, it's starting to look good for operators. It's starting to look better for conditions moving forward. So that's exciting, and we should be getting some good deals coming in different asset classes for sure. I think it's definitely kind of, you definitely want to stay, kind of stay in your lane, and really. Just look at the last couple of years as just kind of a learning experience, and it's not anything to freak about. Like, tough times happen. The real estate market is less volatile, but you are still kind of riding some ups and downs, and great operators are going to get you through it, and they're starting to find good deals. So, and other asset classes as well, in addition to multifamily. So I'm kind of excited. I know people are hurting, and I think a lot of operators are going to figure out how to come out of that as a stronger company, a stronger thing. So, yeah, I know a lot of people are kind of skittish, but I'm a little bullish,
I love it. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. The last couple of years have been tough. The folks that were sitting on the sidelines through all of this, I think their patience is going to pay off for them. And I'm excited to see what comes in the coming years as well.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
Well, let's rewind a little bit, Eric. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and how you found yourself in the position you are today?
Okay, yeah. So I am a capital raiser for what I do is I partner with just great operators. I have a couple different asset classes I like to look to. It's dependent on the operator. I usually choose my asset classes based on the operator, based on kind of who I know in my network. And it's been a really neat thing kind of moving into that space. And actually, it was after a number of pivots that I made to land here. I was actually finance major at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and then kind of went out of that. And I came from a very traditional upper middle class upbringing where you did good in school, you went to college, you did good in college, you got to go be a consultant, and then you got to go be an executive. And that wasn't my path. And man, I just love life's kind of twists and turns. So my favorite pivot was when I ended up at the Cincinnati Fire Department. I was 25. I graduated college. Went at a mortgage broken. I hated the hard sell. I couldn't do it. It wasn't a good fit. Did some remodel stuff, and I found my way on the fire department. I took the test at the behest of some of my friends, and I got hired, and I kept showing up, and they kept paying me, and I was having a blast. And, ended up not too long ago, I retired from that. And while I was there, I was just kind of doing the W-2 entrepreneurial thing, and yeah, I had a side hustle here and there, and they never took off. And finally, I took that next big pivot, which was buying my first residential property. And I had to sit in front of my grandpa, Sheldon Flowers, and he was an old P&G guy, and I'd have to sit there every time me and my cousins had a big idea. We'd have to sit in front of grandpa and explain how the numbers were working out, and he would just watch us deliberate, and then he'd sign off on it anyway. Never once did the question come up, Eric, do you know how to be a landlord? My answer would have been no. That's not something I realized until I got the keys, but I took that leap. It was time to put myself out there, and it was so cool. And so at that time, I'm learning the real estate game, reading every book I can get my hands on, and that's important. I've just always kind of been curious enough to learn something, go down a rabbit hole. And real estate was that rabbit hole for a number of years. Now I read a lot of biz dev kind of books and things like that. So, I mean, years of just leaning into this. Then I started renovating them, renovating duplexes and flipping them to myself as rentals, the whole Burr thing. Kind of accidentally did that first one. I renovated, I bought it really, super cheap. I thought, well, I'll put this much into it, refinance it. Perfect idea. And I did it all sweat equity. Oh my goodness. It took forever. I learned so much. And then I thought it went so well. In hindsight, it didn't. It was a ton of work, like way more effort than I should have been putting into anything, right? For the return I was getting. And then I read David Green book on Burr. I'm like, whoa. So there was an entire playbook I could have read a year and a half ago to get through this, but it worked out and I kept doing that. So I did the W-2 thing while I was doing that. And the reason the fire department was probably one of my favorite pivots was I just gained so much from that experience. The people I was with, the character traits I walked away with, and just, you're hanging out with a bunch of dummies like you're goofing, you're having fun, and just the experiences we collected there were unbelievable.
And how long were you on with the fire department?
Yeah, I retired as a lieutenant. I was there for 17 years.
Fantastic. Yeah, mm-hmm. I've got one listener that I am sure will reach out to you because he works here locally for the fire department as well. He knows who I'm talking about when he hears this. So.
Oh yeah. Look forward to catching up with you, buddy. Let's talk shop.
Yeah, there you go. Well, good. So you worked for the fire department for a number of years. You did one burr, or did you do a handful of burrs?
I did a handful of them, and it was actually that was kind of my catalyst to do the next pivot into commercial. And I was doing one of these renovations, and I look up, and you know how projects are. Your hands are cut up, you're sweaty, you're dusty, you're tired from being I would be tired. I'd go work my 24 and then work, 10, 11, sometimes 12-hour days at the rental property. Not super productive, but
sure.
Still being there. And I look up and I'm going, you know what? For the hours I'm putting in here, I'm only trading my time for money. And that was my catalyst to say, you know what? And I had already been dabbling into some commercial thinking. And I'm like, I'm doing it. Economies of scale. And I felt like my skill set at that time would transfer well, which it did. My residential skills did transfer well. But yeah, that was my kind of catalyst to go into that thing and say, hey, like, I need to get passive and free up my time. I want the freedom of time, and I want those experiences and things like that. So from there, I got into a community of other commercial real estate people, and look up, and I'm surrounded by tremendous operators in different asset classes and great markets all over the country. And I'm going, these guys find way better deals in pocket listings than I do. And they're looking to work with people that raise money for these great deals. And they get to do what they're really good at. And I don't have to do what I'm really bad at. Like, yeah. I'm way better at the modeling and the spreadsheet than I am the actual tile.
Sure.
So
sure.
Kind of what my thought was. So it worked out really well. And so that was kind of how I landed in Flowers Capital. And yeah, and it was neat too. And looking back, it never really seemed like an abnormal thing to just kind of go and start companies. And, you know, sometimes they worked out, sometimes they folded, sometimes they did whatever, but learning all along the way, it didn't seem abnormal. There's actually a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, small business owners and all that. So compared to my cousin, he's a big idea guy. So my ideas weren't too crazy when I had to sit in front of grandpa, but
I love it.
Yeah. So just being encouraged all those years was really neat. And that's kind of my journey.
I love it. I love it. Great story. It's a similar story you hear quite often. People are in the W-2. They get this itch that they want to start doing something more. They go to single family because everybody knows single family. And it seems like that's the natural next step. What I know today is it doesn't have to be the next step. You don't have to go get your hands dirty. You can jump right into the passive space right from day one, which, you know, in hindsight, I'm curious to you. Are you glad you spent the time actively investing in real estate, or do you wish you would have just jumped in to passive right away?
I think for me, the time I spent doing that was invaluable. I think that was the best path I could take. Okay. If I was younger when I started, like Brandon Turner and Bigger Pockets and all that has great info for people starting out. And for me, when I got started, I wasn't going to be able to scale at the pace I needed to end up where I want. So for the young guys coming out, you know, and if I had started working at the fire department and bought my first duplex and house hacked and did it all right, yep, it would have been a much different story. So at a certain point in my life, and at a certain point, even if I did start house hacking like that, I'm going to hit this spot where what we need to really impact our net worth and our financial freedom is passive income. Yeah. So regardless of had I started earlier in residential and made that my bread and butter, I would have gone passive regardless as soon as possible. So if you're already looking to go passive and establish passive income, the prior experience in residential isn't a prerequisite by any means. As far as knowing the nuts and bolts of what a deal is structured like, is really that comfortability you want to go into. And there's a lot of information out there. I actually wrote a little free syndication basics, and it's just basically how is it structured? You know, what is a capital stack? What does it look like? And just break it down into simple pieces. Because really, I think that's the hardest part of the passive investment. And then having it underwritten, and I re-underwrite it. And then, you know, I can take it to an investor and then they can ask questions about the underwriting rather than have to underwrite it themselves. So yeah, for sure. As far as going straight passive, definitely doable. And I think it's just a matter of where you are in your life. And really what are your desires too? Residential is going to be a full-time job. Right. But if it's a labor of love, then yeah, go for it. and get passive anyway, right? And if you don't love real estate, maybe you have a job that you do love, go passive. You know, you don't have to go do a W-2 and do residential and then get into commercial. You got a W-2 you love, and that's where you want to spend your time, then you can do passive without any of that other stuff. But for me personally, I'd have done it the same way because I learned a lot. Any project that comes up in the house now, I go, oh, that's so easy, it's annoying. And it's ironic because of I remember that first duplex I renovated, and I'm standing up on this roof, and I have to put in a bathroom fan because it was built in 1880. And I'm getting ready to drill through the roof of this place to put in the bathroom fan. I'd never done one. And I go, I'm putting a hole in this roof, and I hope I can get it put back together. And it wasn't, I did it. And it sounds like a way worse project, for people that have done it. They're like, yeah, obviously that's pretty easy, dude. But for me, cutting a 4-inch hole in a roof, I'm going, I hope I can put this back together. So there's a lot of like practical skills I learned too.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think you bring up a really good point too. There people have like this certain type of career where they've got some flexibility in their schedule, like firemen, maybe nurses, other people that work maybe night shifts or swing shifts, police officers, those types of things. And they might have 2 or 3 or 4 days a week that they've got the time where they can go out there and do that. And I think it makes a lot of sense for people just to do an inventory and look like what are the skills that I'm bringing to the table? Is flexibility and finances and maybe handyman skills or construction skills. Like take a look at everything that you can bring to the table as a real estate investor and apply those skills. Maybe it's the BRRRR. Maybe it is just simply jumping in to be a passive investor, but also knowing that most real estate investors at some point, or even high income W-2 people at some point, they need to find a place to place capital, and learning the skills on due diligence and vetting deals and operators is going to pay off no matter what route you go. So I think you're a perfect example of how you can really blend multiple strategies into one real estate investment career and continue to grow and bring value to other people as well. So hats off to you. Very good.
Because I am very hardcore passive income, multiple income streams, commercial real estate being a fabulous way to achieve all that. But if a 22, 24, 25-year-old comes, hey, man, how do I get into commercial? I'm like, at your age, really think about house hacking. Yep. So I actually give different advice to different age groups, so for sure. And there's definitely a niche of people out there. There's definitely a big, large group that do like their W-2 and that maybe they don't even realize how accessible the commercial benefits are. And I know you had, was it Craig McGruther you had on, I think? He does some great tax stuff. I think in his episode, maybe. Was that it? There was another tax episode.
Sure.
No, you had great guests. So I could, so I'm sure it's been covered, but the tax benefits and the depreciation, talked really well on depreciation and so all these intangible benefits, tangible, but secondary benefits of passive investing are great. And the benefits of being young is, hey, get out there and try stuff, do the house hack, learn the ropes. And if you have a flexible schedule, even better. Now, I don't think nurses and policemen would really be able to do that with their schedule because they work too hard. They work really harder than a firefighter does.
Sure.
So they're a little stressed. We're just kind of like, let's go work a part-time job.
There you go. Well, let's since you and I kind of share the capital raising background, we don't talk about that a lot on this show. So I'm curious if you can share with the audience. Just generally, like, how are you involved in deals that you've been doing? Are you generally going down a co-GP route? Do you do a fund-to-fund structure? Like, how do you position yourself and how are you involved in those deals?
It's dependent on the operator too. So larger operators, I definitely look to go in as a fund of funds, which would be kind of the special purpose vehicle. And for investors out there who are listening, it's just an SEC type thing. So when we're doing deals, we need to think about SEC compliance. So audience, what we're referring to is I can either go in, pool investor money together and place a large chunk in a deal, and then act as a active member of the general partnership, or I can use an SEC regulation type structure that's called a special purpose vehicle, where I can actually take fees in a different way, and really kind of it delineates me on the side of it'll be in an LLC type thing. So there's a delineation where I'm not actually in the GP, and it's just kind of more management. How does the operator like to manage that kind of thing? And with the and with those structures, it's definitely and we've already kind of touched on it. Really leaning into that not educating investors, educating each other. So I'm learning a lot from operators, and constantly I need to, because market conditions change, our expected returns change, what are building costs, all these sorts of things. So it's staying connected in that way, but also getting investors comfortable with the deal that's coming and what it's going to look like and what it might, and hey, there's going to be ups and downs, but here's generally what we're going to do. These guys are great. Here's why they're great. Here's what we're going to expect. Here's the nuts and bolts of it. And then when the complicated things come up, like special purpose vehicles, it's kind of like, okay, I read an article on this and it's not that easy to explain, but let's start down this road, because and if I'm really talking about education, we all kind of learn from each other anyway. And in the entrepreneurial space, I love just sitting and talking with people like that, because it's always so energizing and so refreshing, and you get your wheels turning. So education and capital raising for me is a big deal too. So yeah, when I am entering those deals, like there are some SEC kind of weird things that go on, but my goal is always to make sure we are all on the same page. We're all up to date on the lingo that might get thrown around in a webinar, like, hey, when they say special purpose vehicle, don't freak out. It's like,
right.
It's a normal thing. it's just an SEC thing, which is all complicated. So
very good
to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we kind of act as a liaison essentially between the operators and the investors. And, I think probably one of the most important skills as a person that's helping to bring additional capital to the table is our due diligence process in finding and vetting those deals and operators. So I'm curious, can you walk the audience through kind of your process, or maybe some of the evolution of how that's changed over the last couple of years, and how you're finding deals, vetting deals, and making sure you're putting the best quality deals in front of your investors?
Yeah. So honestly, I have just kind of narrowed down the deals I look at. And a lot of the operators, their deal flow has slowed down a little bit, which is picking back up. But mostly what I've done the last couple of years is focus more on the operators, seeing what they're doing, seeing what they have coming up, and really getting a feel for what they feel like we're in as far as the economic cycle as well. So as far as, am I looking at more deals or less deals? I'm looking at fewer deals, but that's only because I have a more narrow stable of operators now.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point too. Early on, I think it's important to look at a lot of deals all the time, but certainly as you become more skilled with the due diligence process, what gets through that first pass of due diligence starts to become smaller and smaller and smaller, because you start to become more specific in what you're looking for. And I probably rule out 90% of the deals that come across my email in 2 minutes.
Mhm.
whether it's geography or asset class or business model, debt, financing, or track record. Like if you can get through those, then I can jump in and do a little bit more detailed due diligence. But fewer and fewer of those actually make it through the initial scrub for sure.
And I know you're going to ask me this question later. So this is going to be one that kind of fits in now is, what questions should a passive investor go into asking a capital raiser right now going into a deal? And I think the one question I would ask the capital raiser is this a deal you believe in? And for me, it's like, yes, I'm bringing you deals I believe in. And it actually reminds me of a story, and I should be trying to highlight myself in a better light, right? But part of the reason that capital raising was a good fit and why I'm so excited to work with these great operators is after sourcing my own deals, I finally got one in Dayton, Ohio. It was a good deal. It was the numbers we needed. The capital raising wasn't the best. We weren't getting a huge amount of traction, but it's a tertiary market. So we ended up getting some conflicting information in the 11th hour, and it changed rent projections and vacancies to the point that I didn't believe in the deal anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked away, and it was heartbreaking, and my stomach turned. It was miserable. It's a miserable feeling, but at the same time, you can't go into a deal you don't believe in. And if the numbers are, hey, we'll probably get that. Oh man, probably isn't something
Right.
do I have, is my confidence behind this and I believe in it? Yes or no? So I think that's a good question. And I wouldn't mind being asked that question at all too, because it's like, yeah, if you ask me that, like, I want to give pause and I want to say, yeah, you know what? I do believe in this one. Let's get excited.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point too. If you are dealing with people that don't believe in their deals, then that's probably your first sign not to be working with those folks. Like as a capital raiser, all we have is our word and our due diligence and the skills that we're bringing. And if we're putting deals in front of our investors that we don't wholeheartedly believe in, we've got no business being involved in those deals. So,
and it backs up to where I'm not believing in a deal unless I believe in the people running it too. There's a lot of levels that goes in there for a capital raiser. As you know, like to believe in a deal, we got to believe in the operators, the property management, the underwriting, the market. So it's kind of an all-in-one question, really. Do you believe in it?
It is.
No.
Yeah. No, I think, and I think that's a fantastic question. I'm glad you brought that up. I had a similar situation this summer time. I ended up going through, getting down to final stages of due diligence on like 5 different deals that I ended up stepping away from. And as a capital raiser, you've got to have the ability to walk away from those deals, and you cannot be so dependent on acquisition fees or due diligence fees that you start letting those cloud your decision making. And if you're in a position where that is starting to come into play, I think it's really important for you to step back and take a look and see if there's other ways where you can take that urgency off of those fees. I mean, and I would say the same is probably true with operators as well. If operators they need that next acquisition fee in order to keep the lights on, there are some different motivations that are occurring there as to why they're doing that deal or not. So really, really good topics. I think that it pays to dig into those questions because, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't believe in the deal, you shouldn't be doing the deal, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of comes back, a little bit to stewardship too, because, man, you're running a company. You need cash flow, but you're running a company that people are depending on you for your service and your word. So, you just got to bite the bullet. And even if you're crunched and you really want that management fee, if it's not the right deal, it's not proper stewardship. And I think that's kind of where we're getting at is, you clearly know what it's like to be tempted by that cash flow and have to say, nope, it is not the right thing to do. And And, in the quiet of night, it's like, man, I really do want to do this. And you're like, nope, right is right and wrong is wrong. Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and thank you for going down that path too. That's a side of this business we don't often talk about, but I think it should be talked about more. Because at the end of the day, you brought up the word stewardship, investor capital. I actually look at my investor capital. I'm more fearful of losing that capital than I am my own.
mm-hmm.
And I remember when I first got into the business, I heard people say that, and I didn't really truly understand that until I got into that position where, if there are risks and there's a chance that you can lose capital, then it's really, really time to keep looking for the next deal. Because at the end of the day, capital preservation is first and foremost, as the big boys say, like rule number one, don't lose money. Rule number two, rule number one, right?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
So, well, very good. Well, let's, it's probably time we start wrapping it up, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what's going on with you and Flowers Capital in the coming, months and years. What are you focused on? What are you targeting? What are you trying to accomplish for your investors?
Yeah. So, we're trying to just bring investors to financial freedom. Financial freedom to me is, freedom of time and really being able to savor experiences that matter the most, right? Man, if you have time and flexibility to spend with your family and friends anywhere you want, and memories are, really, really savoring those experiences as you gain financial freedom. So that's my goal for my investors and myself, is to really get out there and establish passive income and just get out there in the world and see what we can do. And, it's how impact is made as well. So in the coming months, we are definitely looking forward to, I don't think I'm jumping the gun here, but we should have a deal here in the pipeline in the next couple of days with great operators in the Southwest, and more to come. So we are looking forward to a lot. And I know a couple other asset classes that operators that will probably have some other really great stuff too. And in the coming years, I don't know. I feel like I could put a 5-year idea out there and I'll end up making another pivot in year two,
Yeah. That's certainly one thing I've learned in this space is be careful, like how firm you plant those stakes, because odds are you're going to be pulling some up and shifting directions at some point. So, well, very good, Eric. Well, this has been fun. For listeners that want to get to know you and Flowers Capital more, where can they find you? How can they reach out to you to learn more about what you're doing?
Outside of LinkedIn, just go to flowerscapital.com. And referring to the complicatedness of syndications, there's a free ebook at the top at flowerscapital.com. So, yeah, you should be standing out.
Outstanding. Well, very good. Well, before we wrap up, I do have a few questions. You answered one of them already, so we'll speed through that one. But I do have a few questions I'd like to ask everybody. So for the newer passive investor, in addition to your ebook, what additional educational resource would you suggest that they go to really start or continue their education journey?
Okay, yeah. So as far as passive investment books, The Hands-Off Investor by Burke, what was his first name?
Brian Burke. Yeah.
Brian Burke. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I blanked on that. Hands-Off Investor by Brian Burke's a great one. The Best Ever Syndication book by Joe Fairless is another good one. And those are really the two that pop in my head for sure.
I love it. Both are referenced a lot. I made a promise that every time Brian Burke's book was suggested, I would put it out to the audience to send me a message in LinkedIn, and I will send them a copy of the book. I think it's a book that everybody should read.
I'll do the same thing for sure. It's such a great book.
Yeah, very good. So you mentioned a couple of books, and I'm a big podcast guy. I'm curious, what type of podcast or what podcast are you listening to lately, and it got you really excited about listening to podcast?
So the one I listen to is Cash Flow Connections, and Hunter Thompson runs it. And they have a segment that is, they have economists on there. So I really like that one. It's really neat to hear them talk about the economics of the driving economic factors in our market today. That's probably the one I listen to a lot. And then there's a couple others, but they're pretty like dense, like inverted yield curve type stuff. And I'm like,
Sure.
It takes a minute for me to get through them. So, that's a good one I like listening to. And there's, as far as for a passive investor, I think, Bigger Pockets is a pretty good one, I think, to kind of get your feet wet and kind of what the industry kind of looks like and feels like and sounds like.
I think Bigger Pockets offers a really good overview of a lot of different type of real estate investing, and it gives the listener the ability of hearing all of those and deciding where they want to start first or go next. And as you specialize,
their printed material's really good as well.
Absolutely, all of their books are fantastic. So good recommendations. Thank you for those. I haven't heard Bigger Pockets for a while, which is odd because that's actually where I started as well.
Same.
And then I moved on to Hunter Thompson and a lot of the ones that you mentioned. So very good. Very good. All right. Well, we've got a couple of fun ones to wrap it up. So is there a bucket list item you've recently checked off your list or one you're hoping to in the near future?
I'm going fly fishing in Belize. That would be a bucket list one, I think. I've been waiting to get a tarpon for like ever. So I should get one down there. And then the next bucket list thing I want to mark off is I think I'm pretty sold on buying my dad a 69 Mustang. Nice. So I think that's going to be the next kind of like mini goal I have.
I love it. Very good. Giving back to the family, something that is very near and dear to myself as well. So very good. Yeah.
I mean, after I'm 42 and I can't remember how young I was when I started hearing about, man, I wish I never sold that 69 Mustang. And oh gosh, so that'll be a neat surprise when I pull it off.
Absolutely. All right. And our final question I like to ask everybody is if you had $100,000 you had to invest today and you couldn't put it in one of your own deals, where would you put it?
I think I would probably look into, acquiring existing businesses. That's a really neat space I've been hearing a lot about. I know there's passive investment opportunities there. I was actually just talking to a guy about it not long ago. Someone we both know, actually. But at any rate, looking into some of those biz dev opportunities. A lot of the baby boomers are selling their businesses and finding that there's a lot of opportunity to go buy businesses. There's a lot of supply out there for that. And I've just really been leaning into that topic in general. So that's kind of where my mind's at. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, no, I think there's all kinds of different ways to find passive investment or passive income. And business acquisition is one of the squirrel things that I've been looking at as well. I haven't gone down that path just yet, but I'm sure it's just a matter of time before I dig into that a little bit more.
Oh, it sounds like me. You're probably resisting shiny object syndrome and we're going to end up doing it anyway type of thing.
Exactly. Yep. Well, very good, Eric. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been great. Thank you.
No, this was really great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. To the listeners, as always, we encourage you to continue that education journey in passive investing. And more importantly than that, we encourage you to make the decision to place your first or your next investment in a passive investment deal. I am so convinced that once you do, you will just wish that you had started that much sooner. So as always, thanks again for joining us today for another great episode. Join us again next Thursday for another fun episode with a new guest. And be sure to like and subscribe us on all those podcast channels. So thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.